1943. This is my mother Alice Pleer on her wedding day in Mount Pleasant, Iowa, which at 728 feet altitude is really more of a mound than a mountain. Alice Pleer was taking the surname of Root, as in Earl Root, who was in training for World War II. If you had asked Alice where her ancestors came from, she probably would have said Germany. I remember on the very rare occasions when she would swear it was in German, or Deutsch as she would say. But what did it mean that she was German? This is a complicated question, and it's difficult to capture in a short video. There has only been one war on the planet Earth, and that has been for world domination, or control of the land that was as far-reaching and geographically and technically possible. In between the fighting, these gaps are called ceasefires or simply peace. Empires rise and fall or morph into new empires. When Julius Caesar was fighting to expand or maintain the Roman Empire, he used the Rhine River to describe and separate two main peoples. West of the Rhine were the Gauls, which later became France. To the east of the Rhine, he called the territory Germania. German tribes grew and settled over the next hundreds of years. 39 independent states developed, and it wasn't until 1804 when they became one unified state, known as the Austrian Empire, but it still wasn't called Germany yet. 44 years later, revolts, political chaos, and revolutions were seeing people flee to the New World in droves. The same year as the potato famine in Ireland, 1848, thousands were also fleeing Europe. Many Germans fled and immigrated to Wisconsin, Ohio, and Missouri. Luxembourg is a small country that did not escape the European fighting and posturing. In 1839, part of it was divided up and a portion given to the newly created state of Belgium. In 1866, it was part of a tug-of-war between Prussia, northern Germany, and France, which was settled by having no winner. Luxembourg would be neutral or independent. So imagine you're a country sandwiched between Germany, Belgium, and France, and you can't publicly take sides. Learning both Deutsch and Francais would be beneficial. Oh, by the way, there is also the Luxembourgish language. Although it was occupied in World War II, Luxembourg had managed to keep independent after the war. Although they might tell politically incorrect jokes about each other, Luxembourg has strong ties with Belgium. They had a monetary union long before the euro. And just to make things more complicated, there is a province within Belgium called Luxembourg, or Belgium-Luxembourg, which is actually larger than the whole country of Luxembourg. And thank God there's no city or province inside of Luxembourg by the name of Belgium. John Peter Pleer, aka Peter John Pleer, aka Pierre Jean Pleer, was born in 1829, and you got it, in Belgium-Luxembourg, a territory in Belgium. His wife Marie Newberg was also from Belgium-Luxembourg. She was born in 1830. In 1864, together they had a son, Jonathan Pleer. Around the age of 25, in 1889, Jonathan came to America and settled in Wisconsin. Nicholas Beaver, or Beaver, was born in 1828, and his wife Susan Hainan was born in 1831. Both were from a town called Nuspelt in the country of Luxembourg. Nuspelt has a tradition of pottery dating back to 1458. Beaver has many variations, including with a B like Justin Bieber, and it means beaver, as in the damn animal. I mean, the animal dammer. Or it could mean a person from a town named Beaver. Nicholas and Susan Beaver had 8 children, one of whom was a daughter named Anna, born in 1866. She immigrated to the USA in 1889, and it is possibility that Anna Beaver and Jonathan Pleer came over on the same boat. That is a very romantic possibility and makes for a good storyline. Anna Beaver married Jonathan Pleer in Appleton, Wisconsin in October of 1891. 10 years after their marriage, John and Anna were on a farm in Outagamie County, Wisconsin. Shortly after that, they moved to Marathon County. Between 1892 and 1907, they had 10 children. In addition to farming, Jonathan worked in a paper mill near Kimberly, Wisconsin, a town that was named after John Kimberly in 1889, who started a paper mill that eventually led to a worldwide corporation known as Kimberly-Clark. With 10 children, the family expanded to spouses and grandchildren. Here's a photo taken of the family a few years after Anna Beaver Pleer passed away in 1936. We'll come back to the Pleer family. When the subject of Prussia is discussed, most people have visions of militaristic leaders and soldiers with pointy helmets. Prussia has been in existence since the 1300s and has a history of being scrappy. Its history starts with crusading Teutonic knights. It might be scrappy too if your flag had an eagle with a sword in one talon and a scepter in the other. Prussia was a major impetus for the unification of Germany in 1871, when Germany became Germany. A year after the unification, Peter Simon Scher was born in 1872 in Aurora, Illinois, son to Caspar Scher and Helena Blum, both from Prussia. Caspar came over to America in 1846 and Helena came over in 1855. Caspar married Helena in 1857 in Schleisingerville, Wisconsin, which eventually became Slinger, Wisconsin. Helena Blum's family can be traced back to the 1700s and has many descendants. Wisconsin is known for its cheese output, and much of the cheese needed cheese boxes. Enter John and Paul Blum, who ran the Blum Brothers Box Company and the Wisconsin Butter Tub Company. The company, located in Wood County, Wisconsin, ran from 1910 to 1972. Helena Blum and Caspar had 12 children, Peter Simon being the seventh child. Wilhelmina Schmidt married William Brandt in Germany in the North Rhine region of Westphalia in 1867. She was 29 and he was 25. They proceeded to have 5 daughters and then 1 son. The family left Germany and arrived in America circa 1885. The Brandts farmed in Dodge County and later in Waukesha County, Wisconsin. Wilhelmina passed away at the age of 73 while visiting her daughter Martha. William died sometime after that. We don't have the date. Martha Maria Magdalena Brandt was the 3rd child of William and Wilhelmina. She met Peter Simon Scher and the two married in 1894 in Slinger, Wisconsin. They had 10 children. Now the stage is set. They came from Belgium, Luxembourg, Prussia, and Germany. Pierre and Marie Pleur had a son named Jonathan. Nicholas and Susanna Biver had 8 children, with the 6th child being Anna. Anna married Jonathan. Caspar and Helena Scher had 13 children, with the 7th child being Peter Simon Scher. William and Wilhelmina Brandt had 6 children, with the 3rd child being Martha Brandt, who married Peter Simon Scher. Peter Simon Scher was 22 when he married Martha Brandt. He was working as a blacksmith and knife sharpener, possibly with his brother Philip. Around the age of 32, he began working for the Rodis and Veneer Company in Marshfield, Wisconsin, where he worked for 38 years. He died from a heart attack while walking to work at the age of 70 in 1942. Viola Scher was the firstborn child of Peter and Martha Brandt Scher. She married Herman Braham at the age of 17 in 1913, and they had a daughter, Dolores, in 1915. Shortly after the birth of Dolores, Viola was granted a divorce from Herman Braham. She married George Pleur, the son of Jonathan Pleur, in 1916. George William Pleur was the first son and 3rd of 10 children born to Jonathan Pleur and Eva Beaver Pleur. He was working on the family farm full-time by the age of 15. He married Viola Scher in Duluth, Minnesota at the age of 21, and he was working as a foreman for the Sioux Line Railroad. George and Viola had 4 surviving children, with Ruth in 1918, Esther, Bob, and Alice in 1921. Viola also had custody of Dolores. Alice was 3 years old when her mother took sick, and after a period of 2 years, Viola died in 1926. This had a devastating effect on the family. George had left the railroad for a job as a traveling salesman for the Peterson Oven Company, a job that took him to Illinois, Minnesota, Wisconsin, and as far south as Tennessee. George had to decide what to do. The family was divided up amongst his brothers and sisters and in-laws. Ruth stayed in Marshfield with Anna Pleur Wolfe. Dolores stayed in Marshfield with grandfather and grandmother Scher. Esther went to Superior with Margaret Pleur Lilleroth. Robert went to Illinois with Francis Pleur and his wife Zella. And Alice, the youngest, went to Superior, Wisconsin to stay with Laura Pleur Simstead. It wasn't always a long-distance family. There were times when the family got together for reunions, birthdays, weddings, and celebrations. By her own admission, Alice was a bit precocious as she approached her teens, and it was a little bit too much for Laura Blair Simstead to handle. So Alice went to live in South Minneapolis with her Aunt Marie and Marie's husband, Carl Hewsome, where she gained a slightly older cousin, Harold Hewsome. Alice attended Roosevelt High School in Minneapolis and graduated in 1940. As her older sisters had all gotten married, it was now Alice's turn. She was introduced to a man who, like her, had lost a parent at an early age. Earl Edison Root had lost his father when he was 15. Earl liked Alice a lot and proposed at a local dance when some other fella was trying to dance with Alice. With Earl going into the service, the two were anxious to get married. They got a license in January of 1942 and even had the customary waiting period of 5 days waived. But something happened, probably Army training, and they didn't get married until a year later in Mount Pleasant, Iowa. Earl was stationed in Burlington, Iowa. After the war, Earl worked for General Mills for 7 years. Sons Keith and Stephen were born in 1947 and 1948, while the family was living in Richfield, Minnesota. Howard and Thomas would come in 1953 and 1955 as the family moved into Ruth's Grocery at 3210 Chicago Avenue. George Pleer passed away in 1977. Alice Pleer Root passed away in 1994, and Earl Root died in 2001. I started out with the question about what being German meant. I'm still not sure of the answer. But imagine you were Irish Catholic and fled the home country. Ireland had to eke out survival through the famine years. They fought in World War I, abstained from fighting in World War II, and gained independence in 1921, except Northern Ireland. The list goes on for recognizing changes in each home country for the French, the English, and each immigrant group that comes to these shores. Try to imagine the changes Germany and surrounding areas went through. Luxembourg and Belgium, after occupation in 2 world wars, went back to being independent. Prussia was officially dismantled in 1947. Austria declared its independence in 1955. Germany, after losing in 2 world wars, was split into 2 and wasn't reunited until 1990. But then on the flip side, look at the stages and eras that America has gone through. Each generation dealing with the changes brought on by the previous generation, wars, and technology. And then it is up to each generation to pass the torch to the incoming generation. Thank you, and don't forget to hit bite and subside.
Tweet, 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 tweet.